Hello, hello. Today I have with me Angela Duncan. And Angela is a woman who defied the odds and survived a childhood of abuse and poverty. With 25 plus years of personal finance study, Angela has honored her expertise to inspire hope through financial literacy. She is also the host of Empower Her Money podcast. So, Angela, welcome to the Mind, Body, Soul Mastery podcast.
Thank you, Brenda, for having me. I'm excited to be here today.
Oh, you are so welcome. I'm excited to talk to you. So let's just get this conversation started. And if you would just kind of start with that pivotal moment in your life when things had to change and the path that you kind of chose that brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I have probably several in my life, but my first was when I was 18. As you mentioned, I grew up in poverty and abuse. And when I was old enough to sign my own lease, I moved out of that situation. I wanted to, start a new, healthier life, or as I think about it now, run away from what I was enduring as a child. And so I knew that I just needed to shift, to have a different environment, to give myself a chance to have a better life and a better mind. And I knew that I had to remove myself from that situation. So that was really my first pivotal moment in changing my life pattern.
And so what were some of the things that you did to change?
Yeah, I mean, I enrolled myself in college. I didn't have a car at the time. I took the bus everywhere and I worked multiple jobs. I found a job that was early morning, and then I built my class schedule around that. And then I had a job at nighttime, I had a job at weekends because I had to support myself. I didn't have any other means, and I really didn't know anything different other than work and go to school. So I knew that if I at least got an education, then maybe I would be able to do something more with my life. At least that was my belief system as, an 18, 19-year-old working my way through school. And I was on the 5-year program. So, I did not accomplish that in 4 years. It did take me quite a little bit longer, but
You
that's okay.
accomplished it. That is
Yeah.
the biggest thing.
Yeah, I knew that I wanted to get that degree. I wanted to learn more about money. So I was a finance major, and I just needed to kind of educate myself and take some action so that I can figure out how the heck do I get from where I was to where I want to be in life.
Sure. And so what were some of the I'm sorry, I just like to go deep and personal.
Yeah, let's do it.
What were some of the biggest challenges for you in those 5 years? If you just, even if you think in the realms of mind, body, and soul, like the things that come up, the everyday. 5 years is a long time to be going to school, working, learning to be on your own. Like I remember those days. What were some of those hard things that you overcame during those?
Yeah, I probably felt really lonely because I worked
Mm,
so much. I didn't have a good group around me. And that, a lot of that is myself. I didn't allow people in. I didn't want to be hurt by other people. And so I was very guarded, had my wall up. And I just focused on the education piece because that was the only thing I could control in my life. And coming from a childhood abuse situation, you have no control of that over that. So knowing now, what I was doing and my patterns and why I was doing what I was doing. I didn't understand it as a kid, but knowing that I had to control what I could. So I could get myself to school every day. I could get myself to a job. Those are things that I could control, but I really didn't have a lot of people and a lot of support around me. And it wasn't until I was almost done in college that I met some incredible women who just started to change my life. They were very successful as a financial advisor. They were confident. They lived in great houses. All the things I thought made people happy, they had. And so I just started asking questions. I've been very curious most of my life. And I wanted to know, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Teach me how you are successful. And I just started hanging out with them and asking them to, just show me a different way. And it really started that curiosity, and that kind of started me on my path of really learning more about investing and stock market. But had I not taken that first action and been curious and had enough confidence in myself to ask questions to someone who I felt like was living this big lifestyle that I could never imagine for myself, I probably wouldn't be here today if I hadn't at least started some of those small steps to just change the where my life was going.
I love that, the curiosity, because as you were talking, I was also seeing how dots connected. Your curiosity of asking, like observing others and asking questions, also kind of took away the defensiveness and the guard
Mm.
down that you might have put in place of keeping people kind of at a distance from you. So that curiosity piece is extremely interesting. And I think it's extremely important in this mind, body, soul mastery is that we get out of our own way. And that curiosity piece allows that doorway, you could say, to open. So that's beautiful.
And it could be scary too. Oftentimes I really feel like as women, we love to help each other. We can, we'll give someone the shirt off our back or give them the last piece of meal that we have, right? But we're afraid to ask for help. And so that knowing that early on in life, or at least learning that you get around great people, you get around great women, and you ask them questions and show them that you're genuinely there to learn and that you are coming from a good place and how can I also serve you, then they're going to be willing to help you because they were at where you were at some point in time. And understanding that is huge.
I completely agree. And I think for some, taking that step of being curious, of wanting to change, like, so sometimes we know we have to change, but we don't even know how. Like, we don't even know what step to take. So sometimes that curiosity and just asking the question is the bravest thing that we as women sometimes ever do. And I don't think that we acknowledge that enough.
Absolutely. And yeah, and around the same time that was occurring, I was pregnant with my daughter. So it was my first child. And again, going through poverty and what I did as a child, I never wanted that for my daughter. And it really pushed me to learn more. At the time, I lived in a house with her father, and Domino's Pizza didn't deliver to our house. That's how awful the neighborhood was. But it was normal
Mm.
for me because that's what I grew up in. And it was normal for her dad because that's what he grew up in. So when she was born and I started having these conversations with him and with my mentors and saying, like, how do I not repeat this cycle? Because I know that my mom grew up in poverty. I know that I grew up in poverty and I don't want the same for my daughter. So what do I need to do? How do I need to change myself? What kind of mindset do I have to be in order to create a different life for her so that she doesn't go through what I did?
That is so powerful. So powerful. So you started talking to asking questions, talking to mentors. What else, what other things did you do?
Yeah, so I did have one male mentor in my life at that time who kind of discouraged me from the whole sales route. And I needed to get a securities license in order to be a financial advisor. And typically, when you work for a investment company, they will help pay for it, right? And so he didn't. And I took the week off from vacation or on vacation while I was pregnant, and I wanted to prove to myself and to him that I could do this. And
Mm.
sometimes when you have someone who doesn't believe in you, it's almost as powerful as someone who does believe in you because I already had a chip on my shoulder. I already knew that I've come from a very hard life and that things were never easy for me. And so to have someone in my life saying, hey, I don't think this is the right role for you, made me want it even more. And while ultimately I didn't stay in that role for long, it was a huge learning lesson for me. One, that I could do it if I really wanted to, and not to believe in other people when they're not believing in you.
Wow, those are lots of patterns and conditioning patterns that were broken from that experience.
Yeah, and I have repeated that a few times, so I don't know that it's broken, but this is a lifelong journey. I know that this is something in my mind I'm going to have to work on and continue and be, intentional, especially with the mindset and the positivity. But once you acknowledge that that is part of your journey and you kind of accept that's who I am, and I give myself grace for having that, I just grow stronger from it. That's what I want to teach, other people too.
Absolutely. And I do think sometimes we have Sometimes the same lesson keeps coming to us because we have to understand it at a deeper level.
Yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. So what is it that you are doing today?
Yeah, so I have built and exited several companies. I find I get bored pretty easy in companies. I like to build things. I don't like to manage. And so finding that about myself, this past year, actually in 2023, I had built an insurance company, and I just did a recent podcast about this where I was not being the best leader that I could be. And ultimately, I had people in my company that were not the right fit. They were not in the right seat. And I kept blaming them for it. And I worked crazy hours. And then I finally just said, I'm not happy. Like, if I was
Mm,
not here tomorrow, would I be proud of what I'm doing today? And I ultimately sold that company. It wasn't the best time for me to sell the company in the condition in that it was, but I had to allow myself to take care of me and my mental health and figure out what I'm repeating again in my patterns, because I'm not successful in this company and the way that I was building it. And I'm not helping clients if I'm not good. And I'm not helping the employees if I'm not in a good place. So I sold that company. And so I thought I was going to retire. You know, I'm in my mid 40s, and I don't know who thinks they can retire in their mid 40s. I definitely wasn't financially able to. And I started to get bored. And so I was brainstorming with some women that are in my life that are doing great things. And this concept of empower her money just came up, because I do want to empower other women. I do want to help with them financially and teach them just some basic information, because sometimes these books that people write are so overwhelming, and they're so like you need a dictionary in order to read it. And I didn't want that. I want someone to say, hey, I'm ready to take control of my finances. I've never done this before. Where do I start? And I just wanted to keep it simple. And so that's kind of what my last year of this journey has been. Podcast really took off. I was kind of surprised, because I've never been a podcaster before. And then I have so many people, you know, reaching out to me and just telling me that they've read my book or they listened to my podcast and they've made this change or that change. Because as you know, Brenda, as a podcaster, you don't get to see what's on the other side. So you do what you do because you hope that you're making this impact, but you don't really know. So I appreciate it when people come to me and say, thank you. Like, I learned something from you. You have impacted my life. And then you just know you're in the right place and you're on the right journey, and you just keep moving forward and hoping that you continue to have that impact on people and changing their lives so that they can change other lives. Because if you can't share your gift with people, then why are we working on it?
absolutely. And I don't think there's any better gift or compliment to hear than you've impacted my life or you've changed my life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
Things that I view are super simple, but they are
yeah,
to me because I've been learning about it for a long time. It's not simple to other people. And when I hear people say, oh, I put this into place, and I think, well, that was common sense for me, but I understand it's not for you. And I'm so happy that I could help you.
beautiful. So, with where you are right now in your current situation, or let me ask this question first. So, what would you say is your biggest lesson you've learned by not taking care of your mind, body, soul?
Was when I sold that company last year. I was
Mm,
not taking care of myself. I was working way too many hours, and really the self-talk that was going on in my brain. You know, I look back at that now and I know where it's coming from. And I realize now when it was, you know, that it was happening, but not in the moment. And so when I was so burnt on that company and just walking away from it, wasn't the best business decision for me. And had I really spent more time on myself and, you know, taking time off and really getting clear on my goals and where I wanted the company to be and spending the time to hire the right people and train the right people, I didn't do that. I just took it all upon myself and just said, I'm going to do this. And that wasn't the right thing for anybody that was involved in the situation. And it really got me to a breaking point to where I just had to walk away. And that was not a healthy state of mind for me to do that. So I realize, you know, now that I still have to work on that. You know, like we talked about, you're going through the same cycle or same pattern, because I haven't quite learned the lesson that I need to break that so that I can move forward in a more positive, and helpful way versus repeating that pattern again and not taking care of myself. Because if you can't take care of yourself, how do you take care of anybody else in your life? So my health and
Yes.
my mind has to come first.
Yes. So completely true. And I know this isn't about me, but in my first 4 decades, it was taking care of everyone and putting myself last. And you do get to this breaking point where there is that pivotal moment that I can no longer live this way. And the only thing I can change is me. And so
Yeah.
every person, when they start a healing journey, that's that point that they have to get to. And would you say that you are able to recognize your patterns quicker now that you've moved further on? You started this when you were 18, this journey. You said you're in your mid 40s. Do you find yourself noticing quicker and being able to shift faster out of a path than before?
Yeah, absolutely. And really for me, it's my routine. I'm a routine person and it's kind of boring and nerdy, but the way that I start my day is intentional. The way I end my day is intentional. So when I know I'm coming into a bad season or that pattern is starting to repeat, I look at myself and I realize it's because I'm not controlling the start and the end. And so
Mm.
by start of my day, I don't go on my phone. I don't check social media, emails, anything like that. So I grab my journal and I have 2 dogs that live with me and we just go outside and they go do their thing. And I'm writing down, what am I working on right now? What am I feeling right now? And where are my goals leading me to? And how will I feel when I accomplish those goals? Because tying that heart to that accomplishment, that's what drives me. I can say I want to do 100 podcasts, but that's not meaningful to me. How many people can I reach with these stories and helping impact other people? That's the feeling I want to have. So, and then I like to have fun and not be so serious all the time. So the end of my day, I don't subscribe to Netflix. I don't have any of those streaming services. I do have free YouTube, and I go on YouTube and I find funny videos. So it could be like impractical jokers, or it could be just people falling over, or dogs and cats, whatever it is, whatever I'm feeling in that moment. I want to end my day on that positive note so that when I go to bed at nighttime, I feel good. And when I find that I do the good morning routine for me that works for me and the evening routine, then I'm getting myself out of those old habits that tend to weigh me down to where I'm not taking care of my mental health anymore.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that start of the day and end of the day practice. Like, I think that right there can be key for so many people. And sometimes that might seem like a lot to change, but in the scheme of things, it's a really small step to beginning to change your life. So
Yeah,
thank
five
you.
minutes. 5 minutes in the morning, 5 minutes in the evening. Everybody can find 10 minutes in the day.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be hours.
Yes.
And so,
Yes.
I mean, some people have practices that are hours.
Yes.
I don't have time for that. So,
Yeah.
so one last question. If you just think about like your current situation, what challenges like still come up? I think you mentioned negativity, and that to me was kind of like one of those maybe you feel like it should be done with, but it's not. It keeps coming up. So what are those things for you, and how do you keep moving forward with them, trying to improve? You know what I'm asking.
Yes. So a couple things. One is something that reoccurs for me, and it comes from early on, is the feeling of being alone. So when you have, a mother who drinks and a stepfather that's abusing you, you really don't have anyone in your life, right? You don't have anyone in your corner. So that feeling of alone comes in a lot for me. So I have to remind myself, and this is where my faith comes in, is that, God is by my side. I'm not alone because he is my biggest cheerleader. And if he loves me and forgives me for everything that I've done, then I kind of have to do the same. So the feeling of alone is something that still repeats for me today. And then also not feeling like I'm enough or I'm doing enough.
Mm.
And that, I'm sure, is very deep rooted from the childhood, because when you don't get the recognition and love as a child, you don't build that confidence. You always have to feel like you're chasing it. And so I have to be very cognizant of what I'm doing and the why behind it. If it's for the wrong reasons, then that's when that pattern starts to repeat, and I have to break it in order to remind myself, this is not who I am. This is not the life that I want to lead. And it's coming up from something that I couldn't control, but I can control today. And I can control how I'm handling this. And I can control what my attitude is. And it takes practice every day, intentional. And I could go I can go a few days without it popping up, but it's still there. And I know it's still there. So it's just something that I work on, and hopefully, it'll get to a point maybe someday when it's not so often, but if it doesn't, then I'm okay.
Yeah. And I just think about the women that I've worked with in my own practice. This not enough or not good enough is a reoccurring theme amongst pretty much the majority of every woman I've worked with. It's so I feel I totally get you.
See, I'm not alone.
You are not alone. Absolutely. And this is the other beautiful thing about a podcast like this is we get to share the messy, the ugly, the things that we don't even want to say to our family. Now, granted, you can say, well, you're sharing publicly, but there is something around sharing. When we share our shit, is what I usually say, we begin to heal and we realize I'm not alone. There are other people that feel this way, and learning to become vulnerable and share the hard and the messy is where the gold happens in relationships, within ourselves, our own energy. That's where the things, the patterns and the conditioning can start to begin to crumble.
Yeah.
My belief, just a little bit of what I believe. So
yes, but I'm ready to start a new business again. Empower Her Money podcast does keep me quite busy. I've accomplished, a lot of things that I set out to do, and I'm not going to let it go to waste at all. Put a lot of work into it, but I'm ready to start another company and just really focusing on the right people in the right seat so that I can stay in a healthy mindset, and hopefully teach them to do the same.
Beautiful. And I have no doubt you've just put it out to the universe. It will exactly happen as you desire.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Angela, for being on the show. And could you just let our listeners know, if they want to learn more about you, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, so Empower Her Money is on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. And right now, my book, Empower Your Money, I know a lot of people have New Year's resolutions to take control of their finances. So the Kindle version of Empower Your Money on Amazon is currently free. All I ask is that you leave a 5-star review, but it's free. I'm giving it to you. You've got to download it and you've got to take action.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for listening to Empower Her Money podcast. I am grateful for you. Please make sure to leave us a 5-star review, like this podcast, share it, subscribe, and let's keep teaching others how to take control and be empowered with their finances.